It's 2025. If you're still paying a powerlifting coach hundreds of pounds, hundreds of dollars a month, you've got a problem. And I've got the solution. The perfect coach is with you 24/7. They have one client, you, and have your training history on hand, ready to give you progress. Well, how do you go around creating that unicorn of a coach? For me, it starts on the Apple Watch. It's with you 24/7, gives you all those qualities I just spoke about, and really lets you get a more personal experience away from your phone, away from distractions, where you can really just focus on the lifting. So this is the app we're talking about. I'm just going to go through on the computer on the Xcode simulator. That's the coding environment that lets you run iOS apps and test them, because it's a lot easier than trying to video the watch that you're wearing. But yeah, so the app in question is this one here. It's called Power Plus, and as you can see, the logo is just simple PWR with a little plus in the corner that you definitely can't see in a watch, but we'll work on that. But yeah, so you open it up, you got the logo in the top, and we get the first two options. Then when you first come in, main goal for the app is to make it as simple for users as possible. So you come straight in and you've got your powerlifting test and your history. So history, again, pretty simple: squat, bench, deadlift. It's going to give your history down in different rows. You can scroll through, see past history, but I'll get to that in a second. First thing I want to go through is the powerlifting test. So that's where you're going to start. That's your test with the coach. It's going to be able to see where you are, give you a plan based on that. And the way it works is you go through this test, it develops a 5-week plan, and you test on the 6th week. And then it's going to analyze the changes in your lifts. Maybe some lifts you're going up more than others, in areas where it's maybe not. Obviously your deadlift, just because it's a heavier lift, will go up more, but in relation to how much it should go up, the plan's going to adapt off that, and make sure all 3 lifts are coming up in a way that's sort of most beneficial for the user. And then every 6 weeks you're going to have a test that's going to add to your history, and the longer you use it, the more personalized and the more, I guess, optimal to you these plans are going to become. So we'll just jump straight into the powerlifting test. Then you get a bit of information beforehand. So it gives you a little bit of information: perform squat, bench, deadlift, increase each set increases your percentage of your rep maximum. Use a digital crown to select the weight, and your 1 rep max. Predictions are calculated at the end. So the main differentiator here is really that the majority of max tests are calculated based off the reps you're doing and the weight, which is good to a point if you're in person with someone. But if you can't be in person every session, what the Apple Watch gives us is the ability to bring velocity into the mix. So you're able to say, okay, well, I can bench press 100 kilo or 200 pounds at 5 or 0.5 meters a second per rep, but my friend can do it at 0.2. So they're moving at double the speed that I am. And if you're doing, say, 2 reps, then you could assume that their max is going to be greater, because they're not having to grind out that rep. That last rep sort of shows the intensity of the lift, without getting into things like RPE or reps in reserve. It gives us a more realistic view of, how did that actual rep feel for the user. So calculating your 1 rep max then comes off that. And the real benefit of that is we don't have to actually have the user go through a 1 rep max every 6 weeks. What you'll do is go through this test, which only works up to 2 reps, helping reduce injury risk while giving us an accurate prediction of where you're going to sit. So we'll move through the test then. So after you read that, continue. Powerlifting meet coming up. This is a feature I'm working on. Again, the whole app probably isn't going to be released for a number of months, just before I can build up some type of audience for it. But I'm definitely going to be using it for my powerlifting competitions. And essentially then what this is going to do when the feature is ready is select yes, and the plan is then going to be set to your date. So you could select this, say 17th of September. Now you might say, I've got a lift in December, I've got a powerlifting meet. The plan is going to then know your meet date, so that you're not, doing a test the week before, or or not tapering properly, or the plan isn't specific for that date. So eventually that's going to come in, and you have a selected date here. You can go and choose the date, month, day, year, select the date and move forward. But I'm just going to say no for now. I accidentally backed out, but I'm just going to come in and say no. And then it's going to give you a little warm up before your test, take you through, you don't want to just jump straight into a test. So it's just take 10 to 20 minutes to warm up, walk, light weights, any mobility exercises, and then you can click begin squat test and get started. So the first reps for each one is sort of just building you up. So it just starts 50% of what you think your max is for 6 reps. And then you can scroll down and select the weight that you're looking at. So I'm just going to set it at 50 just to get through this to show you the outcome. It gives you a little prompt to rest. And as you work through these, you can see the rep percent maximum is going up slowly, just to make sure you're primed for your top set. It's not throwing you into a heavy set immediately. And then the reps drop slowly as you go up to make sure you're not gassing yourself out and you've the power needed for those last sets. So we go through here 50 all the way up to 85. So we'll go through 80. Now there's a default here, obviously, because this is on a computer. There is no velocity because the Apple Watch isn't moving up and down. But when it does that, it then just removes the velocity from it and gives you the sort of standard prediction based off just your weight and your the weight and the reps. So that just goes back to a default. Still a good prediction, but it's just not going to be as accurate as if you do it with your Apple Watch. So once you've gone through the squat, you're going to jump into a bench, and same thing. You're going to start at 50 and with 6 reps, 60%, 6 reps. And it's just going to slowly drop and take you through your bench session. And as we go through, and we finish with deadlift. Now, I think this is probably the most important section of it, sort of this whole thing, this test as a whole, because it's what gives the app that personalization of where is this user, what lifts maybe are they struggling with, where are they progressing, and then as it progresses, then we can add things like, at what point of the lift did it slow down. So if there's a velocity, the gyroscope in here, if it notices your bench press is quicker from the bottom half and slower at the top, and knows your lockout is weak. Similar for the opposite, if you grind at the bottom and then you press out at the top, it's going to know that the bottom half of your movement is weak, and then you can really make it, basically the most personalized plans possible for the user, for you. So we'll go through here, 85, let's see. And then once it's done, it's going to give you your prediction. So at the moment it's in kilograms. There's going to be a toggle to make it kilograms or pounds for whatever you prefer. And once we have this and we back out and we go to home screen, we now have training in history instead of the test in history. And in the history section here, you can see the date at which your last test was and the weights, squat, bench, deadlift. And again, I'm gonna have to add in a toggle for this for the different metrics of weight. But what you can also see is at the moment they're green. So every time you hit a new PB, it's going to show up in green. And again, you can account for things like, let's say you went through a set, you went through one of the plans, your squat and your deadlift exploded, but your bench stayed the same. If anything was a bit weaker, then that's going to be a notice point, and it's going to know, okay, swap the training. Maybe you went for a lower volume style or a higher volume style, and it's going to predict it based off that, if it's less than the previous weeks or if it spots any trends. So it's a history side of things. Then we have this new button that's popped up for training. Training is an overview. You get 2 different things. You get the training that you're going to be doing on the day, and then you get an overview. So, if you've a busy week coming up with work or kids or family or anything, you can look at your overview, check what you've got and try and plan accordingly, and sort of move from there. And then it also gives you a nice little when's your next test day. So it should be 6 weeks. So 6 times 7 is 42. So it's 41 days away. Let's do a little test to see if it's correct. And yeah, so we've got today's training and training overview. So if you look at the overview, here's a little insight now. At the moment, it's just set to start the next week. So it starts from the coming Sunday. That's just to give you a chance to rest before actually starting the program. You know, if you're starting this, chances are you're coming from training already. Maybe you've been doing a different split or a different type of workout. Maybe you were doing bodybuilding or something different before. And so I just wanted to have it be, you're going to start fresh on the Sunday, and gives you some rest in between. This is not to say you have to rest every single day here, but I think it's a good chance for you to just sort of let your body fully recover before jumping into these plans. And then so as you go, then this is going to update by sort of the next 7 days or whatever you're looking at. So tomorrow, this Wednesday, is going to be gone, and we're going to see another one down below, but it just gives you that chance to get an overview of the sessions coming up, and how to best fit them into your schedule. And then we have today's trainings. This is a bit more specific. Well, today's a rest and recovery day, but I will try and get in an example of what the training looks like. But essentially, it is just a guided session through your training, just like a coach would be. It's going to give you sort of a warm up to run through. It's going to work into your main lift. It's going to give you the reps, the sets, and then from there it's going to give you accessories. I think I've set it so it gives you your main lift, a variation lift, and then your accessories. And so from there, then you're going to be able to follow the plan very easily. It's laid out for you. You can stay focused on your watch. You're not having to look at your phone, get distracted. Some people like that, some people don't, in terms of being on their phone in the gym. But this just gives you that option to not have to scroll social media or be distracted by things. And yeah, so that's the app as a whole. There's still some things I'm going to add to it before releasing it, but I'm definitely going to be using it and testing it and see how it goes. And yeah, I just think, the main benefits for me of this is the fact that it's going to hopefully reduce injury by quite a lot for lifters, because you're never going above 90% in fact, you're never going above 90% even on test weeks. And that is specific. You might be doing it once at the very end of your training cycle, but it's important because if you can stay away from those heavy maxes, that's where you stay away from injury risk and prolong your career, prolong your strength, and really make sure that the goal isn't, can I gain 300 kilo on my total or 400 pounds on my total in 6 weeks. It's in a year's time, you can be drastically better if you avoid injuries, focus on the lifts, focus on the technique. I think especially with sort of quick feedback loop plans like this, it's a 6 week long feedback loop. You're going to get the ability that your plan is going to change quickly. And then as you use it, if you think about that 6 weeks, let's say you used it for 60 weeks, you get 10 different plans essentially that are going to be optimized by the end of that, every plan getting slightly better to what you need until it will become the perfect plan. And then on top of that, then you've got the prediction algorithm using velocity, weight, and reps. So it's going to be more specific than other apps, that are maybe just, give me your weight and give me your reps. It's like, it's not the whole picture at all, because as I said earlier, you could be grinding out 100 pounds or 100 kilo, or you could be going and just throwing it up. So this is going to give us a bit more real insight into the intensity of the lift. And then the other added benefit is when we're looking at the price. So as I said in the opening, the average powerlifting coach is, $100, $200. They've got multiple clients, and you don't really have access to them 24/7, although they'll give you your number and say that you do. Whereas this is going to be priced at, $5 a month. It's $5 a month. It's on your wrist. It's with you 24/7. It's guided workouts, specific workouts. And then, just to finish it, I think the personal coach athlete relationship side of things, it is, especially with the watch, just gives it that feel of guidance, clarity. You're not having to do any thinking. You just do your test, it works out for you, and you can follow it. Very time efficient, very easy to follow. There's no real ambiguity with it. And yeah, I just think it sets it up perfectly for that. And you know, if you look at the future of the app, what I'd hope for it is, you know, prep for a number of shows using it for myself, or just a number of training cycles. Really track it, do some beta testing, make sure it's ready to go. I'm gonna keep trying to post about it on here. Again, for that hope of trying to get, I think for this next maybe even 3, 4, 5 months, I just want to get people testing it, people using it. And so if anybody sees this, if anybody wants to test it, that's what I'm looking for. So we've got that, prep for my powerlifting, get it published to the App Store once it is ready. And then the main one for me is probably the last 2 goals for it, which would be, you know, a fully integrated AI large language model to essentially predict the progress of different plans. So the hope would be it could essentially forecast into the future in the background. You don't need to see it, but in the background it'll be something like, okay, they've done this plan before, maybe it's the 5-3-1 rep scheme plan, and it knows, okay, we've done this before, here's the outcome we got, we've done this maybe 3 times now over, you know, an 18-week period, 3 6-week plans, here's the progress, maybe the progress has gone like, you know, very good at the start, a little worse, then I might know, okay, maybe they're, you know, adapting to this plan, they need something different, so we're going to switch it up and do something else, and then forecast the outcomes. And essentially, again, the longer you use it, the more of these it's going to have, and it's going to be able to predict before it gives you a plan what plan is going to work. You know, it's not just going to be, oh, here's a cookie cutter plan that everyone's getting. You know, it's going to become where exactly do I fit into these plans, and where exactly does my progress fit, and it's going to be able to give you the plan that is most likely to give you the progress you need. And then the final point is gamification. You know, I just think at the moment it's definitely useful, and it's something I can see people wanting, but it needs, I think, an element of some type of gamification, whether it's like a worldwide chart for progress that week by percentage, not by lifts, or maybe totals or something like that. But that'll come in time. But yeah, so that's the whole app. I'm gonna be documenting whenever I find an event I want to do. Gonna be documenting my progress using it, and then hopefully to try and spread it to people and get everyone using it as much as I can.